Massive confidence booster to be able to pull off a 2-0 sweep against Mo. And overall, RG, Fireball, Rage, love that for game number 1. Second game, Giant Skeleton, Dark Prince, Graveyard. It felt like early on he recognized how to play the matchup and just played a perfect game. So I just loved what I saw from game number 1, and I think it's his meta. I think this is Faust's meta, and he needs to he needs to do something here, and I think he can pull it off.
Yeah, well, Faust had really great decks picked in that first set. Looks like Ta is going to be going to Graveyard as Faust is going to the Skies here. And this is an interesting matchup for Ta because depending on what he has to take care of this little Prince, if it's the Void plus the Miner, I mean, it's really hard to protect that little Prince enough. And then so you talk about, well, now I have to protect the little Prince and I need to have the Phoenix. So it's like I always need to have the Phoenix and the little Prince to defend. And as you can see, still takes a lot of damage, down by about 600 HP, not really up in Elixir. And Faust has to be feeling pretty good about that first exchange.
Yeah, one thing I'm noticing with Mortar is that even when you're able to just get solid defenses and get, you know, one of these baby counter pushes, it just feels like you can't really build on it because you have the Phoenix crossing the bridge and then maybe you can get a Knight in as well, but your opponent can always defend with just a Mega Minion. So we're seeing a lot of Mortar, and I mean, is it having any success? It feels like Mortar is just never the move in these games.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's won one of the games, and I think that was Mugi, and I know a lot of it had to do with, you know, being able to change lanes on a dime with that Mortar, but also it's the GY, right? The Graveyard was really the X factor in that game, and it's going to be the X factor in this one as well. But the biggest thing here is how is Ta going to be able to defend? Because also with the other thing with Mortar is you were able to create such a massive offensive presence with the opposite laner in the same lane. You'd be able to bait stuff out, but it just doesn't look like Mortar's being used the exact same way. But you know, maybe not. Maybe we see right here Mortar does lock on that left hand tower. It is an Evo Mortar, so that's going to be tower down, as it looks like Faust is just looking to sack that tower to make this a 2-tower game, which is actually a lot to do. He's still got 700 HP remaining, 35 seconds, and not a great way to get back on offense and to not do spell damage. So Ta actually looks like he might be able to take this one relatively easily, which is kind of surprising considering how well Faust did with his very first push AC. It felt like he did the first push and then didn't really have anything else afterwards.
Yeah, and one thing I have to point out is that I think that's just a really bad lava. Maybe I'm incorrect and maybe he will be able to get it off in time, but it just feels like he played that way too low. And yeah. I mean, he's not, and he's going to be able to clean it up fairly easily, so we probably would have seen a victory regardless.
You know, the barbs weren't really a factor at all, and Faust did just look a little bit uncomfortable. The other thing, though, to give Ta credit where credit's due, is he has an 83% win rate with that deck at CRL, so doing a really, really good job with that Mortar GY deck, which, again, is pretty much the only Mortar deck that is viable at the moment. And now Ta going to Valkyrie, which we've seen Valkyrie a couple times today. Valkyrie plus Bowler, maybe looking at Balloon.
Yeah, we could see Balloon from him. Faust on the other end going to be running Giant Graveyard, which we've seen quite a bit, and I really like that players have recognized that. And Ta going to bring back E-Giant, first player to use E-Giant today, I believe. And yeah, I mean, I love that for Ta. He's one of the best with it.
Yeah, E-Giant's really interesting right now. It does feel like Dagger Duchess, like, counters and doesn't counter E-Giant all at the same time, right? Like, obviously E-Giant a little squishy, as you saw all those daggers coming out doing good work, but also on that same vein, as if that Dagger Duchess is ever out of those arrows and the E-Giant is relatively healthy, it is a lot to deal with. I'm excited to hear what Juicy has to say about this when we get him back after, you know, the next match, because he is such an E-Giant player. I know that he doesn't feel E-Giant is quite strong in the meta, but it's definitely back in the meta.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It does seem to be pretty solid overall. And one thing I want to say is to whoever's running the replays, if we could get the 1 minute and 50-second timestamp right there, Ta placed a Valk on top of the Bowler, and the Bowler pushed the Valk into the Little Prince, and Ta like immediately started shaking his head as like I just did this incredible play. It was such a small play, but it was so brilliantly done by Ta right there.
All right, well, excited to see if we can get that on the replay, because I would love to see exactly what you're talking about. I'm sure the people would at home. And Ta also very happy with that clean defense. The Evo Valkyrie pulls the Giant in, helps with the skeletons, gets the Baby Dragon behind NATO to clean up those archers, and that's a great lock here from the Baby Dragon. Bat's not completely taken out from that Evo Valk, but the Baby Dragon does reset, and all things going right for Ta right now.
Yeah, this is going to be a pretty simple defense as well. The Baby Dragon plus the Bull are going to clean up everything nicely. We're seeing 200, 300, 400, 500. I mean, we're 500 chip damage, but he's going to have a nice little counter push. He can maybe NATO this up if he wants to. Just Ta putting on a clinic right now on how you want to play this matchup.
And I love the Baby Dragon pick. Baby Dragon, a really annoying card to deal with right now in the meta. I feel like Void isn't a great option for it. It's hard to get your units on top of the Baby Dragon. You know, there's usually, I mean, I guess Phoenix is probably the one card that we see regularly in the meta that counters Baby Dragon. But for the most part, we're not seeing a lot of great counters to Baby Dragon. So I actually really like the pull here with that here in this E-Giant deck. And again, should be a pretty nice defense. He's going to sacrifice a little bit of damage, ends up having to use the Tornado as well, and then gives arrows value, so not a bad exchange for Faust, who's down by about 800 HP, and then add on a little bit more with the lightning. Wow. And the Valkyrie gets to tower. That's it.
That's gonna be game. Ta gonna take game number 2, and a beautiful sweep from him.